Hi, my name is Todd with Preparedness.com. Today I want to answer the question, should Christians prep? Now the reason I'm tackling this question is just recently I posted on Prepper website, I posted one of Michael Snyder's articles, and it was talking about September 23rd and had 3 videos in there. The third video was a message, an actual church message, sermon, a pastor, and I thought it was really different because he was talking about conspiracies, he was talking about September 23rd, just stuff that you normally don't hear in church. And he was, I was tracking with him all the way through. He wasn't saying, yes, it's going to happen, no, it's not going to happen. He was saying, I'm giving you this information and letting, putting it out there and letting the congregation kind of make their decision. And so I thought it was different. I thought it was kind of cool. But I got to the end of it, probably around the 59 mark, and he said something that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And so I wrote it down, and I want to share it with you, and this is kind of why I'm doing the video. It says, some people will take this message and want to prepare their houses and get a bunch of guns and get a bunch of food and store up. But I can tell you this, when 100-pound hailstones happen, your house is not going to be probably the place you want to be. Food is not going to do you a whole lot of good when a half of the earth is dying from poisoned water. You are no more going to be able to prepare, ladies and gentlemen, no more than the Israelites prepared when they left Egypt. And again, that's around the 59 and a half mark. He, before that, he's gone into a lot of other stuff, and I recommend, watching the video. I'll post it in below the video in the notes section, so you can check it out if you want to. But I do want to handle this or talk about this idea: should Christians prep? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings out there. And so first of all, let's go ahead and start out, and I'll just answer the question right off the bat: should Christians prep? Yes. And I want to give you my reasons and my rationales, and then you can make your decisions. But really, this video it's going to be for Christians who are asking that question. That those Christians who are wanting to know, should they prep? Maybe they're hearing different things. Maybe they're hearing like this one pastor say you shouldn't. You need to prepare spiritually, and I totally agree with that part of it. And I'll talk about that at the end. But so that might be something you're dealing with, and so I want to kind of handle that and come at it from maybe a different perspective than what you're thinking about it. And then the other thing is, maybe you are a Christian prepper and you're wanting to share some information with someone else and not necessarily give them an article. There's a lot of good articles out there, but maybe you just want to give them a video, something that they can listen to and just kind of reflect on it as they're listening. So let's start from this. Is preparedness, is it Christian? No, it's not Christian, but it's not non-Christian either. Preparedness is just common sense. So let's hit it from this point of view. Right now, you can leave your home, no matter what time you're watching this video, whether you're on your computer, your laptop, your tablet, your phone, you can leave whatever you're doing and go straight to a store. If you live in a decent sized city, if you don't live in a very small rural town, you can go to any store, and pretty much they're going to be open 24/7. If you don't have a Walmart in your city, in your neighborhood, then you're a pretty small town. But because even the smallest towns, when I pass through East Texas, they have a Walmart. So at any time you can go to any store 24/7 and pick up anything you need, and that's the world that we live in, and that's great for those of us who want to get out in the middle of the night and go get something to eat, or you forgot something, you got to prepare. I mean, as an educator, that's happened to me before. I got to get up late or get up and go to the store late at night for something that I'm going to need first thing in the morning. So that's great. But the problem is that we have come to rely on the fact that at any time we can go to the store and things are going to be there. And if we don't order it from the store, I mean, you have Amazon, right? I love Amazon. I'm a Prime member. You can order something and you have it in 2 days. That's awesome. But people don't understand that this is a fairly new phenomenon, right, in the history of the world. Up until not too long ago, the world was basically agricultural. And so you lived, on some land, whatever, however, big that was, and you might have a little garden. Maybe you have a big garden. Maybe you have some chickens. Maybe you have a goat or maybe a cow, something to that effect. Very agricultural. And so when you lived in those days, you didn't have Walmart. You didn't have grocery stores 24/7. You had to plan. You had to prepare. And so it's basic just common sense. And so, for instance, you have a big crop of tomatoes, out in the garden, and you bring them in, and you can sit there to, wine and dine on tomatoes all you want, and then they're gone. But most people don't want to do that. They want to have some tomatoes for the wintertime. So people learned how to can, and it was very important to be able to do those kinds of things. Maybe it's time to slaughter a goat or a cow, and you can invite all your friends over, and you can have a big barbecue. But maybe you didn't. Maybe you wanted to preserve some of that for later on for your family, and so you smoked it, or you dried it, and you had some beef jerky, whatever. There was some way that you preserved that you planned later on for the future, for the wintertime maybe, when things weren't going to be as readily available. If you gardened, if you farmed, then you had to make sure that you kept some seed, so that from the current crops, so that you would have to be able to plant for that next season. So it was just smart living. It was common sense. People use their brains a little bit more. Nowadays, people live paycheck to paycheck. Some people go to the grocery store every single day. And so if they ever needed, for whatever reason, to depend on the food that they have in their pantry, they wouldn't have it. So preparedness is not Christian, and it's not non-Christian. It's just common sense. And I've said it before, I'll keep saying it again. God has given you a brain. He wants you to use it. Just be smart about it. Think it through. Okay? It's plain out there for you if you really think it through. All right, so let's talk about a couple of different things when it comes to preparedness, a couple of different levels. The first level is a very individual level, all right? And so that would be for you and for your family. And one reason to prepare, and I can tell you, I've read tons of articles on this kind of situation, is someone loses their job and they can't find a job, or it's a couple of months before they're able to find a job. And so, those people that have prepared and they have food storage, they're able to live off of their food storage. They're able to go through, their food storage and survive and not worry about what they were going to eat. If you're a Christian and you're a follower of Dave Ramsey, you know that he talks about when you're struggling to take care of those basic things, the shelter, make sure that you can pay your electricity bill and you can pay your water bill, and that you have food. And then there's a lot of other things there that are not important, not necessary. So make sure those things are important before you start paying off all the debts and things that you're trying to handle. And so, people who, like I said, lost their job and were trying to figure out, hey, how am I going to eat? How am I going to feed my family? They don't have to worry about that because they already have it, right? So another thing is, you lose your job and you have a little bit of a financial cushion. The thing is, Dave Ramsey, and a lot of you, if you're a Christian, you've probably already done this in your church. You've gone through Financial Peace University, and it's very, Dave Ramsey will tell you have 3 to 6 months worth of cash, saved up for any kind of expenses for whatever might happen. And you do that, and you don't think twice about that. But you talk about food, or you talk about water, and that's a whole different story. Then all of a sudden, if you start doing that and you're a Christian, you're not believing in faith. You're not trusting in God. Now, come on, let's use our brains here just a little bit. So you have, on a very basic level, you have things that happen individually. Even here in Houston, when Ike came through, and so this is kind of like maybe on a neighborhood level, and then on a very individual level. My neighborhood, of course, lost power, and so it was slowly coming back. But we had some friends who came to the church, and they live about 10 minutes away. So my family went to go stay over there, and they had power, they had AC, everything was great for them. I stayed here in the house, and we didn't get power that evening, and actually we didn't get power. It was a couple of days, but the people across the street had power. And so there was about a day where everybody else's life was back to normal, but our life was still kind of disrupted because we didn't have electricity. And so, that's still, again, that's very individualized. How did we eat? How did we cook our food? How did we do those kind of things? Did we have water? Were we able to drink? Those things, very individual level. So when you talk about preparedness, you have that individual level that you are preparing for. On the other side of it, you have a bigger level that you're preparing for, and that might be city, that might be state, that might be a national level, that might even be a global level. Up north, not too long ago, we had a whole city whose water was contaminated, and so it didn't affect us down here in Texas, but up north it did, and those people, even boiling their water wasn't good enough. And so you go to the store and the shelves are full with everything, but water is completely wiped out. And so the people that had water already stored up, they didn't sweat that. That was just, it was a little bump in the road and they were good to go. And so, that's what I'm saying. You have like this, you have a city preparedness idea, the level, and then you have all these other different levels to prepare. And so I want to tackle three things here and reasons to prepare that I think that are pretty important, and that's something that you should consider, and reasons to prepare that I think that are just could happen. The first is the fact about our grid, right? So our grid is very fragile. It's very old. It's pieced together. Not too long ago, somebody in California plugged something into the wrong plug, and whole neighborhoods were without electricity just because something was plugged in to the wrong outlet. Something was back into the energy whatever power station, and that caused a big disruption just because of that. But down here in Texas, we get brownouts. Right now in the summertime we hit 100 degree, three digit degrees, and it gets really hot. People are running their ACs, and we start to feel little brownouts. The power just shuts off and shuts on and shuts off. We were at school last year, and it was when school started, and we experienced that as well. We had the lights go out for about an hour, or the power go out for about an hour, because it was a rolling blackouts that they were doing because there was such a demand on the grid. But so you have that. You have our aging electrical grid. What about something as simple as terrorists look at attacking our grid, right? And they attack our transformers, and not the transformer that's right outside your, right outside on the power lines, but the big transformers that take up like a whole city block. They decide to go, and those aren't really protected, but they decide to go and attack that, and it knocks out a lot of power for a lot of people. You know what? Those big transformers, they just don't have those lying around. They're just going to take a little bit to get those back into shape. What about the fact that maybe there's some cyber terrorism that happens, and they decide to start taking out the grid that way, and it maybe affect big sections of the United States? One of the videos, if you haven't seen it, was put on by National Geographic, so it was American Blackout. I will link to an article with the video down below the video that you can see if you haven't seen that. But in 10 days, it kind of looks at, and it's a fictional account, but in 10 days, what do people start doing? What starts happening to people in a blackout when they don't have power, the power that they're used to? We're used to flipping on the switch and it's there. And if it's not, hey, something's really, really wrong. And so what happens if something like that happens? And so are you prepared for that? If something, your power was to go out for a couple of days, maybe it was to go out for a little bit longer than that. So something to consider, something to think about. Another thing is as a pandemic. And I know, we've been very blessed in this country. We have not had a pandemic in a long, long time. Not any time that anyone living can remember. And so we don't really understand how bad it could get. We see the movies and all that kind of stuff. We have little scares like the Ebola thing, but nothing really serious. And with modern transportation the way it is now, people can go around the world in about a day, and someone with infectious disease can come over here and start infecting a whole lot of people. And we're due. I mean, we really are. We are due. We've been very lucky. We have been very blessed. We haven't had a big pandemic in a long, long time, and to where people don't want to go to work. People don't want to go out to the grocery store because they are, they're afraid they might catch something and bring it home to their family. Parents don't want to send their kids to school. You get sick and you go to the hospital and there's nobody there because the doctors and the nurses don't want to get it. And so if you think back a little bit about what happened with this Ebola thing, this country was not prepared for Ebola. Even as small as it was here, they were not prepared. There's very small amounts of hospitals that are able to handle something very infectious like Ebola, or even something more deadlier than that. We're not prepared. Your regular hospital is not prepared for patients who are getting sick to come in there and start infecting the whole hospital. Putting on, you've talked during the Ebola situation. We read about and we heard about how important it is to put on and off all that protective gear. It takes a long time, and if you don't take it off, don't put it on properly, and don't take it off properly, it's off for naught. I mean, you're very easy to infect yourself and everybody else. And so another thing that came out about that is that doctors and nurses, they don't get a lot of training on that. And so that's a scary thing to think about. So if there was a pandemic that happened, and people were afraid to get out there in public, what would you do? How would you handle that? Something to think about. I know that watching another, I think it was Discovery Channel, and I'll link to an article with a video on that one. I think it was After Armageddon, and it was about a pandemic, and that was very eye-opening as well. And again, it's a fictional account, but it kind of talks you through it and gets you thinking about some things. And so that's something to consider there. Another thing is economic downturn. All right, maybe not even a big full-blown collapse. What about a downturn? And so if you have been paying attention at all to Greece, you know that they were in a big economic turmoil, financial downturn, on the verge of collapse. The banks shut down and only allowed people to get a certain amount of euros out, 60 euros a day. And so if you are not prepared, if you don't have money at home, in a safe somewhere that's protected, your life at that point is all about getting up and doing your thing, and every single day standing in a line to get to the ATM to withdraw a certain amount of money that the bank allows you to take out. 60 euros. Now, the good thing about Greece is that they're still operating in euros. If you listen to like Fernando Aguirre, who was in Argentina, they devalued their money, and they didn't have euros. They unpegged from the American dollar, and people were losing the value of their money, every single day. But the idea was that you had to go stand in line every single. And can you imagine coming home from work one day and you're just tired and you don't want to go stand in line and you don't want to do those kinds of things? I mean, there was when the whole situation was going on in Greece, there was talk about people who lived out in the country, and they would have to take a taxi to get money from their ATM. Well, the taxi cost 40 euros, and they could only get 60 euros out. So they were only coming away with 20 euros a day. Could you live off of that? I mean, how disruptive would that be if you were not able to access your money in your bank account, and the grocery stores were not taking your check cards or your credit cards or anything like that, and you're only able to get $60 of whatever a day? And so you think about how much money you spend on a regular week, and how that would disrupt you. How many times you swipe your check card? What would that do? And so that's something to think about. I mean, those three things that are we're not talking about crazy conspiracy theories there. We're talking about three things that are very probable. And so should you prepare for those kinds of things? Yes. If nothing happens, Well, the great thing about that is you have a little extra food and you have some water. You pay for car insurance, you pay for health insurance, you might be paying for life insurance right now, and you hope that nothing ever happens, but if it does, it's there. So when you prepare and you have some extra food in your pantry and you have some water that you can get to, and those kinds of things, that's just there. Eventually, you're going to eat it. And the way that food prices are going up, any amount of money that you spend on food right now, you're going to wind up saving later on. So if you just buy food that you eat and just put it in your pantry, then you're just ahead of the game. You're just you're investing in good food for your family. To have in case something happens. And let me tell you, there's tons of articles on how you can plan and all those kinds of things. One of the things that I hear all the time is that I'm just going to trust in the Lord. I'm just going to trust in God. And that argument gets on my nerves so badly, because what I do is I come back and say, if you trust in God, then don't put any gas in your car when you start seeing the needle go to empty, because God will provide, and just trust in God. If you trust in God and you believe that God's going to provide for you, then when the electric bill comes in, don't pay it. Just keep your money, go take your family out to a nice dinner. Don't pay your electric bill, because God is going to provide and God is going to take care of it. Just trust in God. If you trust in God and believe in God, don't go and buy any food. Don't put any food in your pantry. When you open it up, it's miraculously, supernaturally going to be there, because you trust in God and God is going to provide. Those things, you would not be caught doing those things, because that's just stupid. So when people give me that argument, I'm sorry, that's just stupid. Again, God has given you a brain. God has given you the ability to reason things out. And so, yes, can God do those things? Yes, God can do anything He wants. God can break through supernaturally. I totally believe that. But that was not the norm. When you read the Bible, that's not the norm. And so, again, it's something you need to think about. And just because you don't prepare, you're going to cry out to God, and God's like, hey, you had your opportunity. There's that one story, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but this man is in his house, and there's a big flood coming, and authorities are going door to door, and they knock on his door and they say, sir, there's going to be a big flood. We're anticipating everything's going to get wiped out. We're asking you to come with us. And the guy says, no, I prayed, and God will take care of me. God will provide. And so they leave, and they go through the rest of the neighborhood, take everybody out. The flood waters come, start rising up, and they come in a boat and say, sir, the flood waters are coming. They're getting high. We're coming to evacuate you. Come on, you need to come on. Nope. He says, I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord says that He will take care of me. He will provide. Keeps raining, keeps flooding. At this point, it's to his roof. He's on his roof, and they come with a helicopter. They throw down a rope ladder. They say, sir, climb aboard. We're here to rescue you. We're here to save you. And he says, nope. I prayed to God. I have faith that He's going to take care of me. I trust Him. He's going to provide. Of course, the guy dies and gets to heaven. And he says, hey, Jesus, hey, what's up? I trusted you. I believed in you. I had faith. So what happened? And Jesus says, well, I sent you authorities. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. You just didn't listen. All right? So, you got to use your brain. You got to use your head. Now, referring back to that video, that pastor, one of the things that he said was spiritual preparedness. And that is the most important thing that you can do to prepare, because ultimately food, water, shelter, money, whatever, all that stuff, that is temporal. That is here for this earth. But eventually one day you're going to die, whatever that looks like. You're going to die, and you're going to be the way you lived your life and what you believed in. If Jesus is your Lord and Savior and you have given your life over to Him, then you will die and you will go to heaven. And that's the most important type of spiritual preparedness. And so you need to get that. But I think that when people start talking about preparedness, spiritual preparedness, they start talking about the end times, like this guy was talking about, that one pastor was talking about 100-pound hailstones, and he was talking about poisonous water, and he was talking about those kinds of things. You're not talking about preparing here on this earth. At that point, you're talking about the second coming. We don't prepare for the second coming. We don't prepare, at least we don't prepare food and water and shelter and ways of cooking and all that kind of stuff. We don't prepare that for the second coming. Okay, that's, like I said, you've got an individual reasons to prepare. You have maybe, national, global reasons to prepare. But when it comes to the second coming, the only thing that matters is your relationship with Jesus Christ. So we don't prepare for that physically. We prepare spiritually. So I think that's sometimes you see you see a little bit of I guess people talking about two different things. Preparedness on one side, and then you talk about like the end of the world. And when you say the end of the world, you mean the second coming. And when preppers talk about the end of the world, they just mean that the current system, the current ways of doing things aren't happening anymore. You're not able to go to that Walmart 24/7 anymore. All right. And so there's two different ends of the world there, I guess, that people talk about. And so I really want you to understand that, because when it comes to the second coming, when it comes to Jesus, I don't care about my food and water and anything else. I'm going up. I'm going up to heaven. And so very important to get that and to understand that when we're talking about preparedness. I know in the Christian community, a lot of the times when you bring up preparedness, people bring up the rapture. And so within the rapture, you have your pre-trib, you have your post-trib, and there's so many different views all the way around. So a lot of people that believe that the church is going to be, or Christians are going to be raptured before the tribulation, they see no need or reason to prepare. Now, going back to those very common reasons that are very probable reasons that are good reasons to prepare, have nothing to do with the end of the world, the rapture, all those kinds of things. If those things happen before that, you're still kind of stuck. So it'd be smart to be prepared before that. But let's just say that the church does not get raptured before the tribulation. What are you going to do then? So then the church goes through the tribulation, and or they get raptured maybe somewhere in between, whatever. There's so many different views, but let's just say that happens. There's the saying, everyone hopes that everyone hopes and prays for a pre-tribulation rapture, but they prepare for a post-tribulation rapture. And so, are you willing to stake, your family going hungry, needing supplies, and those kinds of things on the fact of that you just believe pre-tribulation? And you know what? Like I said, there's so much information out there. There's so many people, good theologians and commentaries that make good reasons and rationales for all those different views. I would just like to be a little bit insulated. I have my faith. I trust in God. But I'm not an expert in prophecy. I don't know the day or the hour. And so I want to make sure that I've done everything that I can do to prepare. So should Christians prep? Yes. You should always, of course, think it through. You need to have a plan. There's so much information out there. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment and I'll try to get to it. I do want to leave you with a couple of scripture verses here, though. In Proverbs, we got some wise sayings there. In Proverbs 21, verse 20, it says, "Precious treasure and oil are in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man consumes them." So there's something there. There's something wise about keeping some stores there in your house. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 12 says, "The sensible see danger and take cover. The foolish keep going and are punished." So, like I said, God wants you to use your brain. God wants you to use your reasoning, your critical thinking skills to see things. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at this world, look at some of the things that are going on, and see that we're not in very good shape. And so, being prepared, you know, never hurt anybody. And like I said, it's insurance for, you know, if something happens. And then just think about it. Maybe you are prepared to help other people in their time of need, and you kind of do that. And that's something to think about. And maybe you do prepare for other people as well. So anyway, I hope that helped a little bit and got a little bit, give you a little bit, I guess, clearer understanding of why, as a Christian, you prep. Again, it's not Christian, it's not non-Christian. It's just thinking. You're being reasonable, but at the same time, God says, you know, hey, be smart about it. Use your brain. And again, if you have any questions, leave me some comments, and maybe there'll be other people that can chime in and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. And thanks for watching and subscribing. God bless.